What's good, YouTube? Akil here, back with another video, and today I'm going to show you guys how I photograph sneakers and shoes for eBay and for Poshmark. Now, as you guys know, over the past few months I've started to really specialize in shoes, and that's really what I've been selling for the most part. I would say my inventory is about 80% shoes, maybe 10% clothing, and 10% random electronics that I find in the thrift, but for the most part I really just like to sell shoes. So I'm going to show you guys all the different angles that I like to take when it comes to, photographing shoes and just making it look really nice and attractive for buyers. And I'll also share some of the equipment that I use as well, such as my lighting and some of the background stuff that I like to use just to make my items pop out a little more. So if there's anything that I didn't answer in this video, or if you have some questions along the way, drop that in the comment section, because I got this video idea from a viewer and they wanted to know how I photograph my listings. So I figured it would just be best if I did a complete breakdown on how I list my shoes. So if you guys are interested in this type of content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, y'all, so first things first, what you're definitely going to need is some good lighting. Now keep in mind it's definitely dark in here right now because I didn't turn these lights on, and it's super hot in here, so I like to keep the lights off during the day. But for the most part you're going to want at least 2 lights. Sometimes I might use one depending on the amount of natural daylight that I have in the apartment, but for the most part I like to use 2 lights. One is overhead and one is just a simple softbox. Now next thing what you're going to want is that you're not necessarily going to need a white background. For me, I actually found this in the trash. I guess somebody was throwing out a desk and this was like the top layer of that desk. And once I seen this, I immediately thought this would be a great background for some photos. So I actually have this, but prior to using this, I was actually using this computer desk. But the problem with using an actual desk, at least for me, was the simple fact that I didn't want to be taking photos of shoes in the same place that I work on. So I just wanted to separate those two. But of course, you don't necessarily need a white background. You just want something simple, something clean, something non-distracting. That way the buyer is solely focused on the item that you're trying to present. And having just a simple plain background can work perfectly, whether you're selling clothing, electronics, shoes, whatever it might be. Whatever you're trying to sell online, you definitely just want a simple, clean background. So for me, I like to use something white. For the most part, sometimes I might even photograph clothing on the floor. And like you can see, these are dark floors, but at the same time, it's simple, it's non-distracting, and it just works out just fine as well. Alright, y'all, so we're going to use these shoes as an example to take some of these photos with, and I actually grabbed these from Ross. So if you guys shop at Ross, first thing what you always want to make sure that you're doing is that you're removing all of the tags that's in the shoe. Sometimes they might have the price tag, the size tag. They also have some of these zip ties that I see a lot of people leaving, and to me, I'm not going to say it's tacky, but for the most part, I just try to remove all of those type of things just because it's not important. You know what I mean? You don't want the buyer seeing certain things that they don't necessarily need to see that's not affecting the shoe. However, when it comes to the actual tags, I always leave the tags on. That way the buyer knows that the shoes are brand new and they were not worn. Now, what I like to always do is just try to tuck away the laces. That way they're not kind of getting in the way as well, and the buyer can just completely see the whole shoe. Also, before I start taking some of these photos, I almost forgot, especially when it comes to Ross and Marshalls, oftentimes you're going to see some price tags. Sometimes thrift stores also write prices on the bottom, and I like to use certain things to get some of these markers off. Now, this silver marker, you can easily get this off with one of these type of erasers. This is just a simple white eraser, and it doesn't leave any residue or anything like that. So I usually use this, but you can also use some rubbing alcohol. This is just 70% rubbing alcohol, and that gets it off really easily. And sometimes you might come across like permanent marker or something that's really tough to get off. And anytime I come across something that's giving me a lot of trouble, I just go ahead and I use Glue Gun to remove any of these type of, these silver marker stains that they usually write on the bottom of shoes. So that's just 3 things that you can use. One quick note for you guys really quick. I'm just using rubbing alcohol to remove the silver marker on the bottom of these. But like I said previously, you guys can use any of those 3 materials that I mentioned before. And I made sure I put Amazon affiliate links for all of the items that I'm discussing in this video in the description below. Alright, y'all, so as you guys can see, that stain is all gone. And now the bottoms look really nice and really clean. So let's start taking some of these photos. Alright, y'all, so for me, when it comes down to taking photographs of shoes, I like to hit every angle. That way the buyer knows exactly what they're getting. And for these particular pairs of shoes, I'm just going to make sure I use 8 photographs. Now, if it was a shoe that was very detailed and might have had some scuffs and some scratches, that way I would definitely utilize some more photographs. But for these particular shoes, 8 will definitely suffice. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if these shoes were used, the bottom of the shoe and getting the back of the shoe to show any heel drag is super important when you're dealing with used shoes. Since these are brand new, that's not going to be super important, but I just wanted to let you guys know that because I do sell a lot of used shoes as well. Now, the last shoe, which is also super important, is that I always take a photograph of the size tag. This way the buyer knows what size they're going to get, and they can also use the size tag to verify its authenticity. Now, a really important tip that I almost forgot to tell you guys is that I like to use this simple iPhone 6. This is actually just my work phone, and what this does for me is that it allows me to simply just airdrop some of these photos to my desktop, to my other laptop, and oftentimes I would just list some items simply straight from my phone. So by having it in a work phone, I don't take up a bunch of space on my personal phone, and like I said, the photo quality on some of these older cameras are still really good. So for me, what I like to do is anytime I'm taking some of these photos, especially since I cross-list on eBay and on Poshmark, you want to make sure that you're taking square photos. That way it can actually fit on Poshmark and it can be uploaded smoothly and seamlessly. And of course, when you're taking some of these photos for eBay as well, once it's a square, it really doesn't make a difference. It just also allows it to upload really easily. Alright y'all, so I hope this video was definitely helpful for you guys. And like I said in the video, I like to take at least 8 photographs. But of course, if you get 12 photos on eBay and you could put up to 16 on Poshmark, go ahead and use as many photos as you want. Just try to make sure that you're taking several different angles of the shoes. For me, those 8 angles that I showed you guys, for me, that's just my style and it works best for me. But as long as you're taking several different angles of the shoes, especially if they're used, you want to make sure that the buyer knows exactly what they're getting. So many times that I've purchased things on Poshmark and sometimes an angle may have been left out purposely, and once I got the item at home, I realized that there was a stain or there was a mark that the person was trying to cover up, and of course I simply just return it, and I always get my returns accepted because if the item wasn't as described, it's an easy way to return the item. So you always just want to make sure that you're covering all bases, and you're just letting the buyer know exactly what they're getting. So if you guys have any other questions, drop that in the comment section. I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Hey, let's go. First back in the day, and so I can't complain. For all the times I pray carnivores don't come take. Cause it's poppin' up opportunists, I can't salute it. They raising red flags instead of raising solutions. I'm trying to do what's best for me. Okay, right hands on the wall because it's destiny. First time I own, but right hand man ain't nothing left for me. I left him, see, you can't hold me back like elementary. What's meant for me